Hello, everyone. This is Luis, back for week 9 of CS 4540. This week's topic: AI coding assistants. This week's video will technically cover two materials, one being a YouTube podcast video titled Vibe Coding is the Future by the YouTube channel Y Combinator, and the second actually being my own attempt at coding with an AI assistant. So, yeah, let's get started. First, we start with discussing what vibe coding is. And based on the video, we get a sense that it describes a utilizing an LLM to adjust code based on a provided prompt. The video goes on to quote various programmers as they talk about what they utilized coding assistants for. Things such as dealing with minor bugs and errors or formatting issues. To quote one of these engineers, they described their interaction with AI as allowing them to be less attached to their code, thereby allowing them to scrap or rewrite it without much worry. I think another engineer explains that when assigning an LLM to fix a bug, it sometimes can. So they instead ask for multiple smaller changes until the original bug is fixed. And I think that just shows that, vibe coding is essentially just uh, a way to handle busy work through the use of AI. So now that we're familiar with what vibe coding refers to, the question now becomes how it changes the coding process for engineers alike. A couple of years ago, we would expect programmers to be the sole providers of code, making them the implementers of a project or a project's idea. Now, with the introduction of AI that can essentially produce the same, if not better, code than programmers, can the same still be said? The video talks about the employment aspect of this issue, saying that employers have now shifted to focus from prospective employees with an adequate understanding to prospective employees that are quick and efficient at creating code. Uh, however, on a more general, uh, to a more general aspect, these software engineers are seeing a shift in responsibilities, moving toward that of a product engineer, meaning they provide human insight, such as for styling preferences that would otherwise be unattainable solely through the use of AI assistants. And I think this is inevitably where the trajectory of coding with AI assistance is headed, as the knowledge of coding is now accessible to virtually any demographic. as long as they know how to present their task or their problem to a coding assistant. And, to test out how efficient these AI assistants are, I made my first attempt at it through the use of Cursor, that being a coding platform with access to an AI coding assistant. Uh, for the project, I tried a simple game of tic tac toe. It started empty with no files or any code created or written. Uh, and so I provided the assistant with a prompt to create a tic tac toe game. No real criteria set when I created that initial prompt. Um, and so it essentially returned a pretty complete game, all things considered. I was able to play both players, the X and the circle. Uh, clicking on any cell, the player's move would be recorded, and the game could properly detect if either player had won. However, the main thing that stuck out to me was how barren it was in terms of stylistic choices, at least. It was minimalistic, to say the least. Plain, no distinct feature or bright colors, aside from the green restart button. And that got me to wonder, if I could change that, implement some stylistic choices through this AI with no implementation from me. And so I prompted the assistant to implement this color customization for each player and to also add a highlight to the cells of the winning play combination. And it did so pretty efficiently. However, where it was successful in the color customization, it was it also unexpectedly changed something minor such as the grid pattern, where the rightmost edge suddenly became a lot thicker. Uh, and so it took having to submit an additional prompt for the assistant to fix that particular detail. And I think just that alone proves that the general message still stands, that, with the introduction of coding with AI assistants, it is more apparent that human interaction is still recommended and needed to ensure that AI products can meet a desired criteria. And yeah, I don't know. I think through AI assistance, the job of a programmer is somewhat easier in terms of them needing to worry about code. However, they have the added responsibility of being in charge of ensuring AI coding assistants stay on track with what is expected of the project using, criteria and personal choices for styling and formatting. And I'm hopeful to see where this ends up. I think that's it for me today. Uh, so yeah, I'll talk to you all in the next one. Thank you.